ones. It's King Pierce, Snohomish, Thurston, Clark, a bunch. It's about 50 different cities that we're being asked every year to report how long
Good afternoon. Welcome to Kansas City Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, January 6, 2026. First meeting of the year. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with roll call. Kim, may we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Council President Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Shoker. Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, agenda approval. Any changes to the agenda? If none, may I have a motion, please?
So move, Madam President.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And next up, we have approval of minutes from our December meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So move, Madam President.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Payment of bills. We received those in our email. May I have a motion, please?
So move, Madam President.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Michelle with our November 2025 financial report. Michelle Ferguson, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Michelle Ferguson with the Finance Department, presenting the November 2025 monthly financial report. So to start us off, we'll talk about sales tax, just since it's kind of been up and down this year. So far, it's estimated to come in about $1.4 million over budget and only about $100,000 less than it was last year. Utility taxes continue to come in strong as they have been all year. They've been averaging about $156,000 more each month than they were in the previous year and are expected to be $1.7 million over budget by the end of the year. And this slide is kind of revenues and expenditures. The yellow highlights are the things that might seem a little bit off, and the blue is coming in on target and where we're hoping them to be. So property tax is 2% higher than it was at the same time last year, which is right on target. We get the 1% increase per year by statute, and then we assume about another 1% for new construction and refunds. Business and occupation tax, it does look lower on percentage of budget, and that's because we haven't gotten the fourth quarter or the annual filers payments yet, but it is 19% over where it was last year at the same time, and that is due to an increase in the rates. Miscellaneous revenues continue to come in higher than budgeted, and that is due to continued increases in the interest income. And then transfers out, they are quite a bit lower than they were last year at this time, and that is because there were a lot of transfers in and out of the ARPA funds. And then under fire, you can see that it is almost at 100% of budget, and that is because it is paid quarterly, and most of those payments have already been made, so that is expected to come in under budget. And then non-departmental down at the bottom, that is only at 47% of budget, and that is because there is one transfer that we wait until the end of the year to do, and so it will continue to be there until we do our final transfers in February. All of the funds have been updated with the budget changes that council has approved. So all of the funds are expected to come in under budget for expenditures. And so just highlighted some of the revenues that we don't always go into depth and talk about. So highlighted on this slide are the Capital Resources Fund and Criminal Justice Fund revenues. So here's kind of a snapshot of the different revenues that are in each of those funds. So the Capital Resources Fund has two different kind of buckets. One is for general capital and one is for parks capital. Both have REIT revenues, 1 and 2, and then interest income as well. But general capital has property tax, and then the parks capital has a transfer in from the general capital. So it is going to come in about $1.1 million under where it was last year, but it is coming in over budget. We knew about some decreases. We knew REIT was going to come in lower, so we budgeted that accordingly. And the streamlined sales tax revenue is decreases 20% per year up until through June of 2026, and then we will no longer get those revenues. And then on the criminal justice fund, there's a bunch of little funds within that larger fund, and so there's a bunch of different categories. Two of the bigger categories are the school zone cameras and the red light cameras, and so here's kind of just a visual of where the revenues have been coming in at this year compared to last year. So both school zone camera revenues and red light camera revenues are about 10%, have seen a 10% decrease from this year to last year, for 24 to 25. The school zone cameras we knew were decreasing a little bit more than we thought they would, but the red light cameras were budgeted to decrease. We knew that once the cameras were kind of in place, people would probably not run them as much as they had it when they first turned on. So we are still seeing over $5 million a year in red light camera revenues. And highlighted on this slide is just the fleet fund. We normally don't really talk about the revenues that come into fleet. Those are mostly from other funds contributing in for that, but there are a couple other revenues in there, which is interest income, which is coming in higher than budgeted, as well as revenues that they get for selling the vehicles that have been replaced. And so far this year, they've received $260,000 from cars that have been auctioned off. And then on this last slide, we've talked about this numerous times, but just wanted to go over it again. The Health and Wellness Fund claims still are higher than they have been at any other year. So here's a visual for the last 3 years. They had a trend from June of 2024 through June of 2025 of increase of about $200,000 per month increase from the prior years. And then we started to see a decrease from July, August, and September, but you can see in October and November they've started creeping up again. So we'll be keeping an eye on that in 2026. Are there any questions?
Any questions from Michelle? All right, thank you so much, Michelle. All right, next up, we have Parks, Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you so much, Madam President. To start off our conversation today, we have our Parks Director, Julie Paris-Gondola, here to talk about the King County Parks Levy. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you all, and welcome, Councilmember Shoker. Nice to see you. So this is my favorite topic. I'm excited to bring it to you. We are, the next agenda item is actually approving the agreement that actually gets the funding, but I owed you a response back on how did we end, where did it land, so I wanted to make sure and do that first, so you will see Kyle here in a minute. Want to just give you, again, I shared this a while back, I've updated it on the new information. The top graph really just shows the history of the levy system once King County decided to put their park system on levies instead of the general fund. As you can see, it has evolved. The one thing I really want to highlight here, which is super critical, it is a policy decision, I think, across all of the county, not necessarily just Kent, is the massive amount of doubling and growth that this levy is occurring. If you see the difference between the 2008 and the 2014 levy is 140% growth. The difference between 2014 and 2020 is 115. I appreciate that they didn't do as much on this recent one, but that's still a 71% growth. We're now in a $1.4 billion amount, right? This was approved by voters in August 5th at a 70.1%. It does just need a 50+1, so it passed. And this basically sets the levy rate at 23.29 cents, so just under 25 cents per 1,000 per assessed value. It's basically an estimated increase of almost 71% or 600 million from the prior levy. What I want you to, which you can't, oh, just kind of cuts off a little bit. If you look at the little red flag, I'm making it a red flag because it is a red flag. In the levy currently right now that was just approved, it's for the years 2026 through 2031, there is growth. There's still, I'm going to be a land, purchasing land. We're growing assets and infrastructure. It's a growth levy. Also maintaining what we own is in there, which I'll talk about here in a minute. If King County stays on their trend, right, the average of the growth is 108%. If you take 108%, the next 6-year levy is now going to be $3 billion. The question will be on all policy leaders in King County, where does it end? Because if it continues to go, we are going to be outpricing the people that we're supposed to be serving in Parks and Recreation. It's maybe a time that we need to consider slowing, taking care of what we own, not growing, maybe putting a % on the general fund. So these are a lot of things that I think are going to be policy discussions probably over these next 6 years we're going to have to figure out. Can't see this, but hopefully you can see it in your presentation. If not, I will get you a copy. We decided to see who voted for this levy, just to see. Kent did approve it, so we did get this right from the election data. Kent residents approved this levy at 58.8%. That is a little bit of a growth. The first column is the current levy. The second grouping is the past levy. So they passed the last 6-year levy and this levy. Now, in my heart, I appreciate that. Thanks for the support of Parks. I think you're going to see, I really am not sure that some of these voters understand the benefit of return on this, which we'll talk about. The other thing just to represent is understanding the voter turnout. Only about 21% of voters came out on this last election, so it's just understanding that representation of the whole city. So in this case, it's really just taking a look at it. You'll see that there are more cities that are starting to reject this because, again, we're not in the millions, we're in the billions now. And you'll also see on the voting percent, some of them are right on the cusp, right? So I can imagine this is going to continue to see a decline as we're moving forward. We'll talk a little bit towards the end. I really do believe that some of these voters thought they were voting for Kent Parks. I really do think so. And then there are definitely a percent of voters that believe in the high county system and will support it regardless. So I think we've got a mix of what's happening there. King County, another frustration that we had, several of us, not just in Kent, is how they engaged. They had, of course, a stakeholder group, which we'll talk about, but all their reporting is on their website. I do have a link somewhere in this presentation if anybody's interested in looking. They are kind of promoting, hey, we talked to 4,800 people through this process. That's awesome. We did so great job. That's literally 0.01% of all of King County. I wouldn't say that was a full engagement. That's not even a statistically valid representation sample. So it's just one of those things where engagement could have been a lot stronger of understanding how they actually engaged their residents, how they worked with different residents of different populations, people of color, income, all that type of stuff. So that is a challenge. One of the things we did engagement with King County, I did serve, it was during 2024, served on the stakeholder group as a city representative. That was also we had trails people there, regular residents, and so on. Frustrating. We finished that process in July of 24. Then King County took it, went completely dark. We didn't hear anything for 8 straight months, and then they dropped the levy with basically sharing what was on the levy. That's when the flurry kind of started as, whoa, oh my gosh, what's happening? What happened to everything? We obviously worked and had some of our own meetings with the Parks Director and his staff over at King County. We also, myself and Mayor Ralph, met with the leadership in the Parks Department, really trying to push the equity side of this. Kent needs more return on this levy for what we're paying into this levy, which we'll talk about. I did present this to the Parks Commission in early 2025. They also weren't very excited about the return. They then mobilized and were writing emails to our representatives, taking the surveys, really trying to push for more equity in Kent. After that, City Council, thank you. In March last year, after I presented, you also saw the inequity, and we did send a letter, we being you as the council, to the King County Council and the King County Executive on, hey, we need some better engagement of what our residents are returning versus what we're receiving. Then, of course, I would say maybe 4 weeks prior to this being voted on by the King County Council, there was a lot of flurry because a lot of park directors, a lot of mayors were getting involved because it was so inequitably in how it was delivered. And the formulas and what was funded was literally changing daily. And towards the end, none of us even really knew kind of what was the final. We had to officially get the resolution and kind of walk ourselves through that. So just summarizing the general concerns we have as a park director team, you all have as council, is one, the lack of direct benefit. And I'm taking this directly from the letter that the council did send. The direct benefit and reinvestment of our tax kind of coming back to Kent. There was zero change on that, which I'll share here in a minute. The disproportionate direct funding allocations, this is like direct pass-through. There was some movement there. I'm going to share that. Lack of engagement with the municipalities, meaning there is a need of park and recreation in King County geographic area. Does it have to be just King County? No, it does not. They did not talk and engage with any of the cities about their plans for parks and recreation in our strategic documents and so on. So that's a major flaw and a major gap. Inequitable pass-through formulas, which I'll talk about, and again, a little bit of change, a little pro and con on that one. And then, of course, missed opportunity on a whole bunch of different areas, and we'll talk about that. So just to clarify, let's take this down to just Kent level now, because, you know, when they do these things, they do the average income of the county, which we know includes north and east side cities. In Kent, we had a 2025 assessed value of $34.8 million. Medium home value in Kent, $601,000. So you'll see the difference on one column is the past levy, the right column is the new levy. Kent residents pay on average, again, this is all just estimating because assessed value will change, $8.1 million, $48.6 million over the course of 6 years. That's what our residents are paying into this levy. That's $1.2 million more than the prior levy, or, you know, a little bit around $22 more in assessed value per 1,000. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the benefit, and we'll be bringing you back to this number here in a second. So just to give you an assumption or a summary of what's actually in the levy is there's funding for aquatic facilities, mostly pools, those kind of things. Ball field and sports courts had an allocation of $60 million. Grants, they have a big section on grants, so community grants, healthy community park funds, youth sports grants, Parks capital grants, I have a strike through there because there used to be a bucket allocation of $25 million that we would compete for. That changed. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, so it's no longer a grant opportunity. Education and civic venues, this was a whole new thing. There was a lot of direct appropriations. Hey, you get 40 million, you get 30 million, you get 20 million, and everybody was like, wait, what? I didn't know we were doing a direct negotiation. In the end, King County created a new category called education and civic values. That was not at the start, that happened at the end, so out of, kind of outcry. King County, cities, towns, and park districts of $144 million, that is the direct pass-through that comes to the city, and we'll talk about that. King County operation and maintenance, that's just to take care of their system. So they need around $500 million through the 6 years to take care of what their land and property has. Climate resilience, conservation, and stewardship, lots in that category. That is around $175 million. Regional and public trails, $182 million. New park development and improvements, $45.5 million. And that isn't all just King County. There's growth in some of the municipalities. And then active recreation or repair and maintenance of $152 million. All of that in general adding up to about $1.45 billion, sorry, wrong, yeah, billion. More information, if anybody wants any detail, this is where I put the hyperlink. It's got, the county has all their detail in there if anybody's interested in more. So what changes actually occurred is we always got a direct pass-through, meaning we didn't have to compete for grants, we didn't have to do all that stuff. It was based on a formula. They just transferred money to come right to the city. That changed up a little bit. You'll see we've got, again, the prior levy was based on every city in King County got 25,000. Cities with populations over 4,000 got 40,000. And then, of course, the remaining balance was based on population and assessed value. They changed that up a little bit now. Now 75,000 goes for the base amount, 50,000 for cities over 4,000, and then 60% is population based, 40% assessed value based. You'll see here, the other thing that was changed in here is they added park districts. Before, park districts were not allowed, or they didn't get pass-through funding because park districts have their taxing authority. So you'll see they're kind of down below here. They get $450,000 each, kind of taking that about $1.3 million out of the mix for that normally went to the cities. So you'll also see I highlighted in yellow, which, sorry guys, you can't really read it on there. I don't know why it's showing that. Prior pass-through funding was $2.8 million. New pass-through funding is $5.8 million. So we did receive an increase of around $3 million across 6 years. On average, about $500,000 every year of the levy. So that was an increase. We did see that because that was a big push by all the park directors. Hey, we need more direct funding versus trying to fill out, 20 pages of grant paperwork and so on. So that helped. This is where we had changes to the parks and open space grants. One of the things that I'm super proud of our parks and planning team is they're very thoughtful, very strategic about submitting for grants when we had this category available. We did really well, and almost every year we were in the top percentage because we have shovel-ready, we have a demographic in our community that can do that, talent in how we write, so matching funds, all that good stuff, right? And we were very successful on it, and through the life of the levy, received about $3.6 million in grants on that opportunity. So when I'm talking about this, I'm really talking about opportunity lost. It was never guaranteed that we would get this funding. It was always just a competitive process. They changed this up. They eliminated the whole category and decided to create a new formula to give you almost like an additional pass-through in a way. So that distribution formula is based on 2025 population data. And then you get some additional funding if you're in an opportunity area, which is a combination of low income, health outcomes, limited access to parks or other hardships. To be transparent, none of us saw. I would love to see Ken's. What was our point structure? What did we see? Nobody saw any of the formulas. This is just how it ended. So you'll see now Kent in prior levy had the opportunity to earn 3.6 and quite frankly even more depending on what we would have submitted. Now we're capped at 1.9, so we did lose opportunity in this particular category. Now we were never guaranteed, I want to be clear, we were never guaranteed, but we are very successful and we lost that opportunity because we will never get more than 1.9 now. So while it appears, obviously it's more fixed, you can rely on it, we actually lost capacity, we have to potentially scale back. Now the funds come in on a every year basis, so many times a year, twice a year, and we're going to have to float costs, whereas before we could have got 1 million, got an agreement, done the project. Now we got to kind of change that up. So we will be modifying a little bit of our CIP and looking at a few things, but this is an area that unfortunately we did lose in here. The other thing that early on we realized is there was a lot of back-end negotiations, I think for just political reasons, passage reasons, other things, some true need, that there was a lot of direct allocations. You didn't have to submit for grant, you just get 40 million to do this project. And it was like, wow. When Kent was working with the county, we were like, hey, we need 5 million to focus on trails and trail connections because we in Kent don't have a lot of King County infrastructure. We have the interurban and that's, in a couple areas, but there really isn't a lot of connection. So the one area we can do some trail connection. So we did get 5 million. If you look in the regional trail, it's not going to be online, but if in the regional trail category, Kent, yes. Mm-hmm.
Julie, is this in addition to the previous funding or is it part of encompassing like
This
the
is
5 points?
New. It passed through, it's not included. This is
Okay, this is
in
addition to that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And I'm going to summarize it in the end. This is in addition to. So 5 million, no understanding of like what it's going to, et cetera, but happy we got it. One thing that's a little bit challenging is we did have funding available for interurban and a couple other areas in the 2020-2025 levy. Did not see those happen. I do believe they're still trying to get to it. So while we have this 5 million, I would like to see the funds come in because the commitment wasn't fully met the way that we expected in the prior levy. So Brian and myself have already met immediately in December after the passage with King County, what we're requesting because of the lack of investment, especially in South King, because if you look at the trails, you're going to see massive multi-million-dollar investments to 10, 20,000 in East Side and North trails. Not very great, right? So we're pushing South King County needs investment in trails. We want this 5 million early. So what's your spending plan? We need to get this funding early. We did already give them a recommendation of areas, which are right here bolded on the bottom about connections on where we would use this money. We're still in those discussions. There's no confirmation. They're still kind of working through that because obviously everybody wants funding right away. So we're trying to work on that. So in the end, this is the high-level summary. The first column, of course, is the original levy. Second is the new levy, and then the difference. So And again, this does not have, this above chart does not have the 5 million in trails, only because I don't want to bank on it just yet. I need to see it. I need to get the agreement. I'll feel better when I do and we have it. But you'll recall the original number, 48.6 million is what our residents put into this levy with their tax dollars. We get back 16% of that at 7.8 million. Not great, right? Now, if we happen to get the 5 million, that helps. That puts us at around 26% return, but we are definitely not over even a 30% return on what our residents are actually paying into this levy. I do want to make a note, just because I do appreciate parks across the system. Anybody in Kent can go to any park in King County, go to the zoo, do that. There's not a restriction or anything. It's not a resident base. Just to remind the council, in a lot of our strategic planning documents with parks and the rec plan, transportation and time are in the top 5 barriers of our own residents coming to our own parks and our own programs. So the assumption that King County thinks all of our people are going to drive that far is grossly overstated. So that's a challenge we're continually trying to work with them on. So next steps here, you're going to hear from Kyle's going to come up here on the next item just to approve the funding, and that is only to get the pass-through funding. That's not the 5 million in trails funding. We need to finalize, obviously we're going to continue to work with King County on that trails, and I'll keep you updated as that conversation goes. We do have to update our CIP a little bit based on funding and cash flow. And then there are some other grants we might have an opportunity to try, and we typically wouldn't put, in, but we're going to try and shoot for it to try to offset. What I am recommending is just consideration of mid and long term, probably a combination of park directors, combination of policy leaders. One is to really advocate for a transparent allocation framework. Everything is done in secret. Nobody has the documentation. So it would really be nice for the cities to be able to see the formulas and the data and all that good stuff. We put together this on our own. We really need to push King County to plan with the municipalities in their own county, because there's a lot of duplicative efforts, and I think there's a lot of synergy here that would really create efficiencies. We really need to focus on a regional kind of coalition, not just policy leaders, but park directors, preferably South King. There was a lot of people in South King that really tried to band together on this last run and make the push, probably too late. And so how can we do that earlier? I really want to push a long-term county, give us a 20-year forecast, because if you're continually in growth mode, what are you going to be in a 15-year, and what does that mean for Kent residents? Because is Kent really able to afford a $6 billion levy? I don't know. Those are just conversations we need to have. Obviously, we need to quantify across the whole county the return, because we talk about east and north side cities, but they also do contribute very heavily with their own taxes into this, right? So there is a lot of equity that really needs to be analyzed across all of the county. And then obviously we need to be stronger in our legislative and policy voices, and then really begin that messaging early, because you don't want to come out against parks, but we really need to make sure that our residents understand what you just voted for is funding things outside of Kent, not necessarily Kent. Thanks to you all and your voting of B&O tax and, capital, we've been able to do some great things in our parks, but that's Kent funding, not always, we do have some grant funding, but so I think there's just a misunderstanding sometimes on what's actually funded in the documents. So not great news, not bad news, because we still get funding. So that is, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow, thanks so much for this presentation. I'm really thankful to you and your team for working so hard on this, putting all this information together months ago as well, so that we could, as a council, advocate for a different parks levy. So thank you so much to your staff, to the mayor, and to any other council members who met with King County council members. It's a little better than it was, but it's not great. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your hard work. Any questions? Councilmember Troutner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Julie. So a lot has happened since this came out. We've had changes in leadership. We have a new representative in our district. Do we feel hopeful that through conversation we may see a little bit more our way? And then just please keep us posted on how council can help advocate and work with leadership to maybe see if we can make a difference.
I will, thank you. Yeah, and I know Mayor Ralph, she's very detailed in this too, and she's right there with us. And it's, to be fair, it's not even just the Parks levy. You all know that it's a lot of that kind of county domination of levies. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Awesome. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much. All right, up next, we will have Kyle Woods so that we can come up so that we can accept and authorize funds from the levy.
Good afternoon, Council. Kyle Woods, Parks Planning and Development Manager. I'm here today to present the King County Levy Agreement for 2026 through 2031. On August 5th, 2025, King County voters approved Proposition 1, renewing the King County Parks Levy for an additional 6-year term beginning January 1st, 2026. This measure authorizes a property tax levy lid lift of 23.29 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation through 2031. The estimated grand total of levy proceeds distributed to the City of Kent for the period of 2026 through 2031 is $7.8 million. $5.9 million of this total is pass-through funds, and $1.9 million in distributions will replace the Parks Capital and Open Space Grant Program. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Kyle? Okay, I will read the motion. I move to accept levy funds from King County, authorize the mayor to sign the 2026 through 2031 Parks Levy Agreement with King County, amend the budget, approve the expenditure of funds, and sign all necessary additional documents, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you so much, Kyle. All right, up next, we have Brian Higgins here to it says amendment to interlocal agreement with King County
It is.
for levy funds. Okay.
Thanks and good evening. Happy to be back here. This is a Clark Lake Park King County Conservation Futures Grant. Let's see. Just to give you guys a little refresher, if you recall back in June, we brought this purchase of this King County Roads parcel at Clark Lake Park through for approval. And again, this is one of the last parcels at Clark Lake Park that's not owned by the city. And right now we are under contract with King County Roads for the purchase of this piece of property. So during that time when we were working on the purchase, we also decided to apply for a King County Conservation Futures Tax Grant to assist us with the purchase of the property. And we were successful in getting that grant, so this grant will pay the entire cost of the city acquiring this parcel from the county. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, I'll read the motion. I move to accept tax levy funds from King County in the amount of $119,850 to be used to acquire the King County Roads property at Clark Lake Park, amend the budget, authorize expenditure of the levy funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you so much, Brian. And that is all I have, Madam President.
Councilmember, and next up, we have Public Works, Councilmember Troutner.
Thank you, Madam President. We have quite a few items on the agenda for Public Works today, and we are going to start with a TIB grant agreement of the Southeast 248th Street and 116th Avenue Southeast Roundabout project. Welcome to David Payne.
Thank you, Subject Matter Council Member Troutner, Council Members, Council President, David Payne, City's Transportation Planner, presenting to accept the Transportation Improvement Board grants received in 2025. So the last you would have heard from us on these two particular applications was in July when we presented them. I'm happy to present that we were awarded the two of the three applications that were submitted to TIB. This is the first is for the intersection of Southeast 248th Street at 116th Avenue Southeast. So this would be for a long-standing project in the Transportation Master Plan to reconstruct the intersection as a single-lane roundabout and add pedestrian facilities. This will include addition of a level of traffic stress 1 facility east to west on Southeast 248th. So a shared use path roughly from Daniel Sortune Elementary to about 118th Street, or sorry, 118th Avenue Southeast. And it will include shared use path through the roundabout, buffered from the roadway by a landscape panel. So that's the first project, and the total award is $3.5 million. The second project is located on West Hill. This is the section of Reith Road just east of Military Road South, where currently there's construction at the intersection with the addition of a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the north side. So this project would pick up from the terminus of that project about 250 feet east of the intersection and carry it through along the north side of Reith Road to 42nd Avenue South. So what will it build? It'll extend the 10-foot wide sidewalk as a shared use path with a small buffer from the roadway over to 38th Street, cross over to West Fenwick Park, to roughly the parking lot past the bus stop and the RRFB crossing, which is located right about there, the new RFB. And then we'll transition the project to use the shoulder, the wide shoulder that's there, and we would be adding a extruded curb to help buffer the shared use path from the travelway. That project, the total project to make this connection is approximately $1.9 million, and the grant award is for $1.4 million. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we always like getting money. Anybody have questions about either of these projects? All right. We will take each one. I will read the first motion. I move to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board in the amount of $3.5 million for the Southeast 248th Street and 116th Avenue Southeast Roundabout project, amend the budget, authorize the expenditure of the funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary agreements and other documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. The next one, I move to accept grant funds from the Transportation Improvement Board in the amount of $1.4 million for the South Reith Road Sidewalk Project, amend the budget, authorize expenditure of the funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary agreements and other documents subject to the final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a Washington State Department of Ecology Water Quality Stormwater Capacity Grant Agreement. Welcome to Heather Martin.
Hi there, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the Water Quality Stormwater Capacity Grant offer today. The Municipal Stormwater Permit, it is administered by the Washington State Department of Ecology, and it allows us to discharge stormwater into the waters of the state, which is the rivers, lakes, local streams, wetlands, and it's provided that all conditions are met, which the conditions are the 9 different programs of our stormwater management program. And with this grant offer, it's $120,000, no match. It covers 100% of all the eligible costs, and we are required to spend this grant funding by March 31st of 2027. So past examples of grant spending have been, we respond to a lot of spills, accidents, illicit discharges, and it has allowed us to purchase spill material absorbents so we can safely respond to these illicit discharges and prevent any kind of contaminants from entering our stormwater system. and prevent, the water quality, prevent discharge to waters of the state. So we're making sure that we're doing our part in preventing any kind of contamination. We've also purchased a pole camera, which allows us to safely inspect our private stormwater utilities. Very convenient and efficient for our stormwater crews. Last year, we were also able to update our education and outreach material and translate the material. We excitingly started a new behavior change campaign, which is the Adopt a Drain program. So that allows our residents to adopt a drain. It's a behavior change that teaches the community about flooding and how to prevent flooding, how to prevent pollution. So they get to go out and adopt this drain. They get to name it. They get to take care of it, clean, safely clean the leaves, garbage, any kind of pollutants. It's pretty fun for them to be involved and do their part. Helps with our permit too, and to comply with the different requirements. So with this grant, it allows us to purchase and spend money on program development, staff time, mapping and documenting our system, our stormwater system, education and outreach, and then with our illicit discharge program, we can purchase spill material, other things like database, any type of education, teaching our own staff, conferences. This grant money really helps our very busy program elements. So, any questions?
Anyone questions? All right. I move to accept funds from the Washington State Department of Ecology in the amount of $120,000 for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Program, amend the budget as necessary, authorize the expenditure of funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary agreements and other documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a consultant agreement with the KBA Incorporated for the South 212th Street Preservation, 59th Place South to 72nd Avenue project, followed by another agreement. So welcome to Jason Berry.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Jason Berry in the construction section of Public Works. You've likely heard of the South 212th Street Preservation project that was recently awarded. We'll be upgrading the existing stretch of road and improving the sidewalk ramps, as she mentioned, between 59th and 72nd. We'll be replacing 14 existing curb ramps with new ADA compliant ramps, replacing failing sections of sidewalk, milling the existing asphalt and repaving with new, and replacing all the affected vehicle detector loops and all the striping that's associated with that work. The project is largely funded by a grant through the Federal Highway Administration. This funding comes with very stringent requirements for contract documentation and administration requirements, and it includes potential for federal project management review audits. As a result, the city's found it advantageous to employ companies who are specific to these requirements. So today I'm requesting the committee's authorization for a consultant services agreement with KBA Incorporated. They do specialize in construction management for local municipalities on federally funded projects. With authorization, KBA will provide construction management, contract administration, field inspection, and quality assurance testing. And that's about it for this.
All right, anybody have questions about this agreement? All right, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the consultant services agreement with KBA Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that agreement passes. The next one.
Okay, this is for our current contract on South 218th Street. It's our third phase of the 224th corridor that goes up to the Benson. We're requesting a supplement to our construction management consultant agreement with KBA. Although the project is progressing well and nearing substantial completion, we've been challenged with unforeseens and changes that have required additional administrative effort. This project is also federally funded through the Federal Highway Administration, and during the course of the job, we've had to add nearly over 40 days of contract time and include weeks-long suspensions for power conversions that were not anticipated during original scoping. And it's just required more time and administration. And so through no fault of KBA, there's just been inefficiencies that have arisen since contract was executed. I'm requesting the committee's authorization for a supplement agreement with KBA Inc. to continue working through the construction management and contract administration while working towards project closeout.
All right, any questions? Yep, Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many change orders have we had so far with this project, do you know?
25.
25 change order.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't find it out. What the price, what's the difference, do you know, from?
Well, heading out of the gate, we were hit with a $500,000 change for some PSE materials that were originally intended to be provided by PSE. That was the original first change order. And so as far as an aggregate total, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I'm probably going to be back here again.
So they got bidded out, right? With this project bid
Yeah, this
process?
was,
So do we know, I mean, based on what their bid and the other bid, is the change order out superseding the previous bid? Do we know that?
a little bit, yeah, it does. Yes, it exceeds the amount of the second lowest bidder at this point.
And there's more to come.
And hopefully not many, but there is more to come, unfortunately. Yeah,
Well, and this is for the consultant that has to
yeah, this is
oversee
for
the
consultant.
project.
I'm talking the construction contract
Yeah,
itself.
I got it.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Maybe I got,
No, I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
I'm good.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I move to authorize the mayor to sign supplemental agreement number 2 to the KBA Incorporated consultant agreement, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And then lastly, we have a change order with Scarcella Brothers for the State Route 167 median drainage at 224th Street project.
Yes, this was a condition that was discovered by our sewer department during a regular inspection of our sewer lines, and they found a failing section. And holes in lines like this can lead to some much more consequential problems. And due to the location near that 7-lane highway and the depth, it was beyond the maintenance capacity to perform. We were requested to seek a contractor that could step in and perform the repairs in a timely manner. Scarcella Brothers has proven that they can do this efficiently and safely. And so with them being under contract on the SR 167 project, we requested they perform this repair. And yeah, they did a fine job. But if you click to the next slide there, the location was very difficult to access. There was a large fiber optic duct bank, which is encased in concrete, that is suspended off that I-beam there, and they had to work below that. So I mean, it was quite the operation. So, yep, asking for approval on that one.
All right, any questions about this change order? All right, I move to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 3 to the Public Works Agreement with Scarcella Brothers Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you for being here. And with that, Council President, Public Works is done.
Thank you so much. With that, we're at the end of our meeting, and we will be back at 5:15 for our council workshop. Thank you, everyone.